Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Today is Tuesday and second day of the large news events that are set to come out. We have the midterms. Yesterday we saw it was a super slow day, so I'll talk about a little bit about that. Midterms. Also into the end of the week, we have the CPI, which is the inflation data that's going to be super important for the coming last final Fed decision. So last time around, we saw it was November 2nd that we had the FOMC rate decision, which came out at another 75 basis points as expected of a hike, which did drop, but that was quickly bought up. And right now we're actually holding that, sustaining that pretty well. So I do want to take a look at these Fed Watch futures quickly. And the pricing in is about 57% for a 50 basis point hike coming into December, which is what a lot of people are considering would be the Fed pivot, right? So 43% chance of a 75 basis point hike to come out in December, which is the final meeting of the year. And leading into that, we're going to see how the CPI data affects that, right? CPI is still hovering around 8 to 9% on an annual growth basis, which is very high and very far away from that Fed funds target of 2%. We also have the Fed fund rate, which is naturally going to be above 4% by the end of the year, which is something that we haven't seen in a very long time, with the expectation for rate hikes to continue early into 2023 before we actually see some kind of pivot. So adding to that, we do have the midterm elections, right? It's going to be election day in the US today. And conventional wisdom has some strong ideas about how the midterms will play out, increasing uncertainty around polling and a contentious electoral, which suggests that anything might happen. So there were some outlets that expected we won't really get a decision into the following day. So even if all the things are counted, there's going to be a recount most likely, and we're probably going to see those ballots and votes come out into the next following day, which is Wednesday. I guess I'm in a different time zone, so it's a little difficult I guess for me, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday morning. So we'll see. What I'm trying to say is we'll see what the vote comes out to be in terms of this midterm, and naturally how that will affect the market. So midterm elections typically go against the party of the president, and if that holds, the Republicans take over even just the House, it effectively would mean sidelining a majority of Biden's agenda. And that's not always bad for securities, where gridlock has also proven and perceived as a status quo, if you will, or more specifically, a lack of any broad or shocking changes on tap to spook traders and spur a market decline. So pretty much, right, you start pricing in the Republican House, and the expectations for that are pretty high. We're probably going to see a continuation in the markets, right? We're probably going to see a continued attempt to the upside, as yesterday we crossed above that 3,800 threshold and actually closed above it, which could open up some potential longs into the end of the year. While the issues at stake in the elections, various races are numerous, including gun control, abortion, immigration. Investors are also going to be focused on a few that have risen to the fore, which are notably a broader economic slowdown this year, with historic inflation actually, while party polarization seems to be at historical highs. When it comes to business and investing, there are areas where Democrats and Republicans are close together than others. So examples of this are where the two parties agree on infrastructure spending, real estate, and construction with utilities. So meanwhile, on the other side of things, ESG, environmental, social, and governance investing is indirectly on the ballot, as Republicans increasingly tap the issue as a political talking point. And if the GOP makes a strong showing, you can expect the pressure on ESG to increase. So conversely, funds like anti-ESG, God Bless America ETF, launched last month with a focus on screening out companies it considers activists. Interestingly enough, clean energy subsidies, I should say, aren't as contentious as other issues, so it may be unlikely that President Biden's signature achievement on climate legislation will be unwound. And oil may be another matter, which is a high talking point throughout all this, especially coming into the winter, with a windfall tax on big oil essentially dead if Republicans gain power. So technology is another area where the parties have diverged mostly in recent years, though perhaps more on style, right? Both have argued for more regulation in the industry, but for different reasons. So Biden administration has been concerned with the concentrated power and antitrust actions on tech giants like Meta, Alphabet, right, Google, Amazon, while Republicans have targeted social media on related issues and say they won't back some currently stalled antitrust bills, which could be a boon for those giants currently in the crosshairs. So we'll have that coming out tonight, ideally, and potentially tomorrow. So that's something that everyone has to watch for. It's going to spur probably the next leg in the market. And I think it's going to be more so of a continuation to some of the upside. And we're kind of going to get what is expected, right? Republicans in the House. And I think the upside in the market would agree with that. I don't know if it lasts until the end of the year. I think there could be another leg lower. It was a little dissatisfying for any bears that came through the market last week that didn't manage to get that drop into Friday, right? The Friday close was pretty bullish. So that upset a lot of bears executing the shorts from the 3,800 region. We've crossed above the 3,800 yesterday and today. So we're going to see if we can see that next continuation, right? We're holding above 3,800. We got to close above that on the S&P futures. The next leg would be above 38.36, right? 38.36 to 38.42, in and around that region. You get that leg above, you start entering into a new distribution block, which opens up into 3,900, 38.95, and probably maybe towards that 4,000 if we can continue some of this and the market likes the reaction of what happens with these midterm elections. So we're going to see how that shapes up. Realistically, I'm going to be leaning a little more to the long side. There are a few areas that we do have to watch. Let me just map out what those resistances are, because I'm looking at some gamma and delta readings that we're coming up into, and there's a big delta and gamma spike in the S&P at 38. 36.40 in that region. That's going to be a huge area of interest, and it's been an area of attraction. We slowly got up there. I think it's going to try to hold some of that rejection to begin with, and then 30. Ooh, that's going to be a tough one. Let me see, because it is based on the ETF. So I'm going to have to change this into, so there's another spike which is attracting into 39.10 on the futures, 39.08 to 39.10. That's going to be an attraction point, and then the 39.25. So those are going to be two areas that prices are going to be attracted towards to the upside, and those are the top ends of the distribution blocks, which we are going to try to explore, holding everything positive throughout these midterm elections. So like the unrest, yeah, I think that might be the issue. Probably going to get the actual count into Wednesday, maybe even later into the week. So that's something that we do have to consider if we're watching this. I'm probably not going to be watching. It's going to be super early for me overnight. I'll probably just check the futures here and there. But there are a lot of things leaning a little more to the upside, even with these midterms coming up today. So that's something that we do have to consider. And with that, I'm still keeping a little more on the bull side. There are a few attraction points that we do have to take a look at, and I'm going to be watching that today. If we do get some kind of pullbacks here on the futures, trying to knock onto that mid to high 30 area, and I'm going to be looking at 38-ish, 38.20 to 38.23. That area is going to be an area of to see if those longs can actually hold out and open up and rebid. I'd be looking for longs off that area, and then the 0507 to the downside if we do get a rejection down there. Fades open up at 36 to about 40, right? 38.36 to 38.40. You can try some of those fades in and around those regions. To start the short side on the fade side, so just opening another computer here. To start the short side on the fade side, those will be areas of interest. Otherwise, going to be seeing how we can open up some of those longs. Now, another thing to mention with that is on a day like today, when you have midterms coming up tonight and maybe tomorrow with CPI on Thursday, especially the midterm prices around these midterm events, I would say, honestly, I don't think there's going to be that much erratic movement until we actually get those results that everyone is waiting for, until we get some kind of, I would say, slowdown in the uncertainty, right? Because IV is probably going to be fairly high, you're probably going to see a little more uncertainty in this market, and for that, lower trading volumes, lower speeds of movement, and until that kind of subsides, we're probably not going to have the craziest of opportunity until we start to see those results and the expectations that do come out. So with that, right, I'm probably going to be lowering the trade count today and waiting to see what happens into tomorrow in the overnight session to actually get those results. If you want to take a look at some individual equities, two things that are interesting to me is Tesla, that made a new 52-week low very recently, time and time again. We also have 40,000 cars in the US being recalled due to some scary malfunctions, I think. And we're seeing a lot of downside from that. As long as we can hold 197, 196.50, I think those rallies could be shortable on Tesla. Above that region, watch out for 200, 202, trying to get back into the bottom end of the distribution for the yearly lows. So just keep that in mind. And also NVIDIA, you have a nice distribution block that we broke to the upside on NVIDIA. Chips are doing really well, which is actually helping hold out the market. If you're watching the overall market, you have to look at chips, you have to look at SMH, you have to look at IWM, the small caps that have been leading this whole thing, because small caps are doing really well. Big tech is doing pretty poorly, but chips are holding out. NVIDIA is above its distribution threshold. It's large distribution that held out for years or a year prior, I would say, and above 143, like 50, 145 region into that area. As long as we can hold, there's pretty low volume that could take us into the low 150s with earnings coming out, I believe, this week on NVIDIA. So keep that in mind. With IWM as well, IWM, as long as we can sustain above 180, I think that those small caps are going to try to sustain this market to the upside. Just watch out, because we haven't really seen too much of an overnight rally from IWM. It's going to be one of the canaries, as it's led a lot of this market strength and actually holding, unlike tech. So let's see how we do from there. 1 second. And with that being said, again, midterms coming out tonight, decreased the trade size, positioning, trade quantity, and watch out for, I guess, more choppy movement like we saw yesterday. So keep that in mind, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.